What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Today we're talking about licensure. This always triggers people, so I'm excited to talk about it. We'll break down some of our thoughts on the topic, and then I have a few things that I pulled from online that we'll get to, and we'll just explore. So, welcome back to the Hello Hair Pro podcast. My name is Todd. I'm here with my wife and business partner, Jen.
Hello.
Hi. So let's jump in. I am, just from the jump, anti-licensure.
I know.
When it comes to hair. A lot of people know that I've talked to me. So, and there are a whole bunch of reasons why, right? One of them is that I can't name a single occurrence of the government getting involved in something and it being better.
Correct.
And if somebody can give me that, that would be great.
Comment below.
Yeah, comment below. So I'll just start to go down this list. And then, like I said, I pulled up some articles that are interesting. And there are people from both sides arguing, and it's great. So we'll break it down. But the first question I always ask, and this is sort of silly, but I've never had anyone ask for a license. Have you? Like the public, they come in, can I see a license before you cut my hair?
Not unless you're the state inspector, whatever they're called.
Right, and I think the biggest...
No, I've never had someone ask that.
Right, which is interesting because I think one of the biggest arguments for licensure is that it protects the public. I don't see how. How? But we use dangerous chemicals.
I've seen lots of expired licenses.
So yeah. So does the public. The public uses dangerous chemicals. They can get all the chemicals that you can get. It's hair. Mm-hmm. They can get everything. They already do. They're probably already lightening their hair at home, coloring their hair.
You can get it at CVS, so
right.
Yeah.
So I don't understand what the license does to protect you. The having the license doesn't do anything.
Well, right now it allows you to do the job, but under the current way things are done, right?
Maybe.
You can't do hair in a salon without a license currently, is what I mean.
There are people doing hair without licenses, though.
Correct.
So then the license doesn't stop that either.
Well, yeah.
That's the whole point, is that it's inconsistent, and it's just kind of silly, if you ask me. And I know no one asked. It's a topic I wanted to talk about,
No.
but it's my show, and I get to do what I want.
True.
So I don't see how it protects the public or where that proof is. And I'm not talking about school or education, because I think you still could have school and education. Mm-hmm. It doesn't require a license to have those things.
Right. It would just set people apart depending on how much time you wanted to put into it.
Right.
Which is pretty much, I think, where personal training was, right?
Yep.
You never needed people would be baffled when I would tell them that. They're like, you don't need a license to be a personal trainer or whatever. License, I guess you'd call it. And I was like, no, Todd could just do it. Some people just get a test it was like on a book. And then they could just use that. So when you talk about hair versus somebody's body, holy crap.
Right. It's hair. It's fucking hair. So I don't think the license stops people from doing hair at home. If somebody wants to do hair out of their house and do their friend's hair,
yeah,
they're going to do that.
The whole beginning of my career, I did people's hair at home.
Right. They're going to do that regardless of if you have a license or not.
Yeah.
Or if you're required to have a license or not. Because people that are going to break the law and do whatever are still going to do that. Mm-hmm.
I think what the license maybe does is if you were doing someone's hair and you're like, I'm a licensed cosmetologist, they know you've been to school, so somehow they think you know.
When have you ever said that sentence? When have you ever been like, I'm a licensed cosmetologist?
You generally come out of school and you're like, I do hair now. So they know that you've gone to school. That's what I'm saying. So like,
I've had the public actually be like, wait, you need a fucking license for this? I've had that.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, I've always
cutting
had a license.
Hair. So. Why is there a license? It's
anybody
so
can do it. Don't get me wrong, but
Oh my God. All right. So I think a lot of people believe that licensure sets like a standard.
Yes.
But I think it sets a bare minimum, not a standard. It's not a standard that you should uphold. You should not finish school and be like, I'm done. Good enough.
Well, I always say people that come out of school, you just got like your beginning foundation and there's so much to do from there. I will say for me, I would rather teach somebody who has some bare minimum training than somebody without.
Right. Hold on one second. That's
Hot water.
We'll edit that out. All right. So the other argument I've heard is that licensure creates a level of professionalism. I don't see how. There are people that are licensed in plenty of other fields that are not professionals.
And there's people in ours that aren't either. I think, again, it goes to
Correct.
that bare minimum. Like they've got at least a foundation of knowledge. But, I mean, you could get that from anywhere. I will say in the world with doing apprenticeships,
Now, I'm not saying
I can't stand licensure because it gets in the way of what I want to do
it's a
with
pain in the
my
ass.
apprentice and how I want them to progress. And that part, when I look at it from that perspective, it's very frustrating because we've had lots of setbacks because of licensure stuff that I just don't
Because
agree
the
with.
government gets involved and they have all sorts of forms that you have to fill out and they lose forms.
Yeah, which is what happened
Or
with
they
us.
move their office and then they say it's your fault because we moved so we didn't get our mail.
And you're lucky you don't get a fine because
you should have somehow used.
Yeah.
Okay. Simmer down there. License,
It's a true
Lisa.
story.
That is a true story. So you brought up the gym. For people listening, I used to own a gym. I was a personal trainer, group trainer. I did some nutrition work, et cetera, et cetera. There's no license. There's no board for gyms, health clubs, anything like that.
I think that's going to blow people's minds because I do think a lot of people think there is.
Right, and there's not. In the state of New Hampshire, there is a health club application that I think you have to fill out annually. And that is so they know you exist. It's nothing to do with a license. And that's because people screwed people over in the past, and this is how they think they're going to remedy that, which doesn't even make sense. Now, just because there was no license, did that mean that the public cannot find a good gym, cannot find a good coach?
No, I will say
No, there
in
are
this
plenty of good
scenario,
coaches out there.
it does set the people that are training apart. Like you put yourself through school, then you did certifications after, which puts you at a higher end gym and in a position of, I don't know, it just set you apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I just think it's interesting when you look at, I'm just talking about just the license. So I'm not talking about school. So I'm glad you brought that up. School, you still need, like when I got into personal training, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
Right.
I needed school. I didn't need a license.
But some people didn't even go to school. They just literally took a test.
Yep.
And
Well, you don't even have to take a test.
I know.
There's nothing.
They were
you don't
just
have to do anything.
doing it, I guess.
You can just say
They were
you're a
trying to
personal
build
trainer.
their professional side by taking these tests to be like, I have these certificates.
Right. That no one cares about because there's no one checking on it.
No, I think clients might over time if you start to advertise that.
In the gym, and this is a drastic example, but you could put somebody in a wheelchair. Mm-hmm. One mistake, one bad day, you could damage somebody's spine, neck. I've seen it. I've seen people get hurt. And no board. Why wouldn't they have a board? It protects the public. Because it doesn't protect the public. Let's talk about schools next. Let's do a thought experiment because I like those. So without the worry of licensure, what would schools be capable of if we asked that question?
Oh, I think that they would be amazing.
Yeah.
They'd actually be able to teach the real material, life lessons. They would teach you, if we're just talking hair,
Yeah, just hair.
it would
Just
be,
hair.
I feel, not to toot my own horn, but how I do our apprenticeship and what we see, and this is fact, people coming out of school and they meet our apprentice, and our apprentice is years beyond what they just learned and paid for in school. And then unfortunately those stylists are very frustrated because they're like, I just got my license and your apprentice is way more technically sound than I am. So a school would be able to do the same thing and make a technically sound service provider, which would be amazing.
Agreed. So if you talk to most people right now, either in school or coming out of school, and we talk to a lot of them, they say school set you up to pass the state board and then you actually learn in real life. Mm-hmm. That sucks.
Yeah. I do think, so I went to hair school. Obviously I teach apprentices, but you learn a little bit. I mean, depending on what you take out of what's given to you. Mm-hmm. I could cut hair okay. I've seen some people come out that can't at all, and I've seen some that are okay also. You learn color theory whether you take it or not. You do learn some. I could perm hair really good. Mm-hmm. I didn't learn how to.
And I'm not saying that there's no value in school. I'm actually saying, just in case people are, for some reason, not paying attention, I think schools could be better.
I think they would be much better because I think they could not be worried about teaching to pass a test. They would be teaching truly the technical, or giving that person the technical ability to do great hair as soon as they're done.
I think without the government's interference, that it drives innovation. Mm-hmm. And then these schools could teach modern, updated techniques and practices that people want to utilize. People want to learn a certain style of haircut. Think about how a school could really niche down and focus on, instead of giving you a little bit of everything to pass a test, they could be like, I'm going to teach you this and teach you this really well. And that's what my school does. And then all the people that want to do that are like, I want to go to that school because it's very specific.
I would potentially have a school if that was the case.
Yeah.
Literally, you could come in and talk to our apprentice. We teach her technical sound skills all day, every day. And when we get close to when it becomes state boards, we'll just quickly go through that so she can pass it. But her whole learning is how to be a great, great hairstylist. Mm-hmm.
And she is already.
It's amazing to watch. Come in and chat with her.
So I think that the innovation is important. Obviously, it's one of our core principles at Hello, and it should be involved in all industry. And the reason is because without it, it becomes complacent, or there becomes this level of complacency, and then things become dated, and then things become archaic. Like a lot of the stuff that you learn has no relevance on actual life cutting hair.
Right. And you're learning so generally, like now they have, I was going to say subjects, but they're teaching you so many things. And if those are things, like I never wanted to do nails ever, but I still had to learn it, practice it. It took up months of my time where I'm like, why? Like if you want me to pass this on the test, cool, I can paint some nails and study a book, but I wouldn't have wanted to give those hours to learning nails. I would have wanted to focus them on hair, but that's not an option. And that's where it's unfortunate because...
Right, and if they had almost like a course plan, a school could have a course plan.
Yeah.
It doesn't even mean that one school has to specialize in one thing. It could be different courses or different instructors.
And you could focus and become more specific on what you want to come out of school with. And what we're seeing right now is these students are so spread so thin that they don't even know what direction they want to go in, and they don't have a skill set that's really sound in any direction.
I think you could do something really cool if you didn't have the whole licensure thing.
I agree. And I hope people that are first like this, like, what? You have to have a license. You have to have school. You have to. We're not saying you don't, but I think hopefully as you hear us explore why we think schools could be better without it and what it could offer and the opportunities it could offer, like I hope you're like, oh, I never thought of it that way. I only thought of it as I went to school and I paid my money, so everyone else should. Okay, well,
that's not how the world works. That's not how you progress.
So we all understand that. I went to school. I paid the money too, but a school of today, if it didn't have licensure, could be a school that truly offers all the opportunities you want out of hair in a way that was custom for you. Would be a possibility.
That would be an amazing experience.
Yeah.
I would pick that school. Yeah. Hands down.
So hopefully if we heated you up in the beginning, you're like, whoa, I would have loved to have gone to that school. That's sort of what, if you didn't have licensure, that would be the opportunities that would be now available. It would be very neat.
Mm-hmm. So I have 3 articles
I'm excited
I pulled
for this.
up.
I don't know what these articles are, so this is exciting.
These articles start from, this one is December 18th, 2011. So it's older.
Okay.
And they range through one that recently passed, I believe, like 6 or 7 months ago.
Okay.
And this is all in regard to New Hampshire because that's where we are, and I'm going to jump around.
That is where we live.
So this article was titled New Hampshire Considers Deregulating Cosmetology, comma, Other Jobs.
This was in 2011?
2011. Huh. So the reason that I wanted to pull up an older article is because people believe that this is a new topic. It's not.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that,
it's not,
actually.
It's not a new topic. It's going on long before 2011.
My mind's blown.
So, cosmetologists, barbers, and a handful of others in state licensed occupations would no longer need to go to school or get a license to work under the bill facing a vote in the House early next year that makes licenses voluntary. Okay. So the school part we already addressed, right? And licenses voluntary. So they're basically thinking how we're thinking, like you still need to learn this stuff. We're just not going to regulate it.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that.
Which would also set salons apart. Correct.
Derek Freeman, no clue who he is, but in 2011, he was a 22-year-old unlicensed hairdresser from Keene, said his customer satisfaction should determine if he can work, not a state license. Okay.
All right, Derek.
Freeman faces fines and potential jail time if police enforce the state law against him for snipping hair without a license. I've not harmed anyone. I have a growing list of satisfied customers. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong, Freeman said. But licensees like Nashua cosmetologist Pam New say that their training protects the public, which trusts the state to regulate the industry. I think they mention it later on, but Pam New is the president of the cosmetology board in New Hampshire. So of course she's saying that. New says hairdressers use powerful caustic chemicals like bleach and can cause scars from burns if used incorrectly. All things you can get without a license, though, Pam.
That's EVS.
Consumers assume cosmetologists are trained and licensed now, she said. I've never had anyone assume that. I don't know. I've never even heard of a case where somebody assumes that. God forbid if anything happens, she said. Literally, we could make bombs with these chemicals. That sounds a little dramatic.
Even still, you can still buy them over the counter.
I agree. I am scanning ahead because this involves some other industries too. Yeah. The licensing structure we have in place is there to protect consumers, and we'll be watching this bill as it makes its way through legislation, said Colin Manning, spokesman for Democratic Governor John Lynch. Supporters argue requiring licenses squelches competition and hinders job growth. I actually agree with that. A license is just one more barrier to entry that might be keeping somebody out of the game that is really talented. It could really be great and do great things.
I would agree.
Now, it's not crazy, but to invest, so like we were in a different position. I went to school at 39 years old. Not everyone can afford to do that.
No, and people, there's not, like the apprenticeship that we offer there's not a lot of those out there. So if you couldn't afford to go to school, you don't have that option. You can't do it. Where most people, if you really wanted to do hair and you wanted to do it well, and let's say you didn't need a license to do it, you're most likely going to search out that salon that will train you or that stylist that you want to work under or with. I want to be like you, show me what to do, which would create a whole nother world of opportunity.
They talk about the reason for licenses is to protect the public. The main reason is to protect the trade from competition, said Bowers. I agree with that too. I think a lot of people in the industry that I've talked to have a scarcity mindset, and they think if more people do hair, I will somehow lose.
Yeah, that's insane.
We talk about that all the time. So instead of focusing on trying to get a slice of a already existent pie, how about figuring out how to bake a bigger pie?
Yeah.
Everyone can have a slice, and the slices can get bigger.
And those that are continually educating themselves would literally rise to the top. I'm always educating myself.
Bauer said opponents are trying to scare the public into believing only trained and licensed cosmetologists can shampoo and color hair without harming them. It's kind of ridiculous. He goes on to say, people are putting these chemicals on their heads themselves. What's more dangerous, a chemical shampoo on someone's head or bacteria in food? We don't license cooks.
True story.
So, yeah. All right. Scanning ahead. McGrath said New Hampshire is one of the most regulated in the country. I think that's about all licenses. I don't think that's just hair, but
We are
one of the
yeah.
strictest as far as
I think we're in the
hours
top
required. Yeah.
It might have changed now, but we were in like the top 3.
Licensing is an ineffective screen for fraud and incompetence, but it is a very popular screen among license holders and trade associations. License holders love licensing laws because they shrink the number of competitors and allow licensees to charge a premium in their prices that range from 15 to 25% higher, he said. Cool.
So he's saying, I don't even really understand that. Can you dumb that down for me?
Licensing is an ineffective screen for fraud and incompetence. It's like what we talked about earlier. Just because you have a license doesn't mean you're not going to cheat at something. Doesn't mean that you're not going to dupe the public. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be a professional.
Okay.
Just having that license does nothing. Holders love the licensing laws because it keeps the number of competitors down. Right? If I was the only person,
barrier to entry thing.
Yeah, so it comes from the scarcity mindset and it comes from fear. So if I could somehow be the only person in New Hampshire to be allowed to cut hair, everyone would have to come to me, right?
Yeah.
That's how people think. But there are too many heads for that to even make sense.
Yeah.
Farrell does believe hairdressers should be trained in handling chemicals, but that the salon owner or individual operator should assume that responsibility. That's an interesting...
I love that.
That's an interesting thought.
Because let me tell you, there's a lot of salon owners that just take whoever to come through the door and they do nothing to make sure that those people actually know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We are not those owners.
Yeah. Skipping ahead a little... There's practically a salon on every corner in the cities, she said. There's 2 in every plaza in New Hampshire. I don't know if you need to go to a city. New, who is president of the New Hampshire Cosmetology Association, said the training could save lives. She recently spotted a cancerous mole in the back of a customer's head. That's good. Yeah, that's great.
Except you're not a doctor.
Well, no. I mean, but I understand being able to identify that and sending some to the doctors potentially saved a life. Sure. That's great. Sure. New also notes that unhappy customers can complain to the board, an avenue they won't have with unlicensed operators. Let me talk about how bullshit that is. Customers can complain anywhere.
And do.
They can complain on Google, Yelp, Better Business Bureau. I just found out that's still a thing. They can complain online.
Yeah.
They don't need a board to complain to. Interesting. All right, let's move on to the next article here. My laptop's being really slow.
Don't you think, too, if you didn't have a board of licensure, stop me when you get there, that then almost the client would be like, well, like, what kind of training do you have? Like, I have people that ask me, like, when you renew your license, how much training do you have to do? And I'm like, none. I just pay a fee.
Right.
I personally do a ton, like every year, but you don't have to. I just pay money to keep it. And that floors people.
Yeah, some states have, I'm still waiting for this to load. Of course, it froze completely, so I don't even know if we're going to get these articles. I know some states do have ongoing education, right, that are required?
I think so, yeah. And that's when they're always blown. But I'm like, if we didn't have licensure, then you might just ask, like, what?
Here we go, I got it.
What have you done to improve your career? Like, that might be a normal question when you sit down with somebody, which would be really cool because that would separate everybody.
So this article is from June 13th, 2017, so a little closer.
Okay.
Braid free or die. New Hampshire governor
Braid
signed...
free?
Braid.
Okay.
Like hair braiding.
Yeah.
Or die. New Hampshire governor signs bill to eliminate licenses for hair braiders. This was in 2017.
Oh, because you needed a license to braid hair?
You did.
Dude, I used to braid hair for everybody for their recitals when I was like 14.
New Hampshire became the latest state to eliminate an expensive, unnecessary, and time-consuming licensing requirement for African-style natural hair braiders, thanks to a newly signed law by Governor Chris Sununu. It will exempt braiding entirely from the state's licensing laws. The government has no business licensing something as safe and common as braiding hair, said Paige Helper, outreach coordinator at the Institute for Justice. New Hampshire's new law will eliminate a completely arbitrary regulation that stops braiders from earning an honest living. Unlike cosmetologists, braiders do not use harsh chemicals or dyes, while many cosmetology schools do not teach natural braiding styles or techniques. So there's a whole issue, there's a cultural issue now, right? And I was talking
Did this get passed?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
that's
I
cool.
was talking to somebody, maybe in Ohio, somewhere, and they said that it's a lot of their state licensure is almost like perpetuates like a level of like racism because of certain cultural things and that. So I'll have to dig up that conversation.
Yeah.
New Hampshire has famously urged residents to live free or die, said Institute for Justice Senior Legislative Counsel Lee McGrath. This new law proves those words are more than a motto by getting government regulators out of braiders' hair. More states should copy such a common sense reform. Yeah, the article goes on to talk about it, but why would somebody need... Okay, so New Hampshire is now the latest state to join a growing nationwide movement. With Governor Sununu's signature, there are currently 23 states that do not license braiders. Following similar reforms that passed in South Dakota and Indiana, New Hampshire is the third state this year to deregulate twisting, locking, and braiding natural hair. Hair naturally, sorry. More reforms may be on the horizon. In May, Rhode Island House of Representatives voted unanimously on a similar exemption bill, while state senator in New Jersey introduced their own measure to eliminate licensing barriers for braiders. So that's moving in the right direction. Because again, braiding hair, it should not require a license. And neither should. Here's something that I think listeners might be confused about too. What about the mom that cuts her kid's hair at home?
Right.
Now, a lot of people say...
That used to be illegal, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's this next article I have.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will say, that's just silly. Nobody's going to... Well,
there was a law, though, against it.
It's the same thing. Either you don't want people to do it or you do want people to do it.
Yeah. I remember
I think
that.
the speed limit is silly. I still have to follow it.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't get to just decide. And I think that's where a lot of people were confused. So this most recent article is from July 2nd, 2021. So just about 7 months ago.
Not that long ago.
Sununu signs bill decriminalizing unlicensed haircuts. Small step, but we're making progress. Cutting someone's hair without a professional license is no longer a crime in New Hampshire under a bill signed by Governor Chris Sununu. The new law updates the state's occupational license laws to exempt services provided without remuneration. Blah, I butchered that word. Basically, if you're not getting paid for it.
Yeah.
From license requirements for barbering, cosmetology, and aesthetics, Sununu signed the legislation along with a dozen other bills on Thursday. Great. Under the previous law, cutting hair without a state license is a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by a fine of $2,000 or 1 year in prison. Are you fucking kidding me? You cut your friend's hair and you get a year in jail? You're locked up. You're done bad.
I don't think people even know that was a thing.
Right, because they're like, well, that's just silly. Well, if it's silly, let's get rid of the fucking license.
Yeah.
So, the previous restrictions covered other professionals and banned anyone from hiring a person to engage in a practice regulated by this chapter unless such persons hold a valid license or a temporary permit issued by the board to practice the respective profession. Blah, blah, blah. While the law is meant to prohibit unlicensed barbershops and other underground operations, it also means that cutting your neighbor's hair could technically get you arrested. Stupid.
Mm-hmm. So at this point now, you're allowed to do haircuts without a license. You just can't be paid for it.
Correct.
That's how it goes. Okay, gotcha. Just checking. Just trying to keep everyone legal out there.
So, and I don't know how that would apply. This is interesting, but how that applies in a shop or a salon setting. So if I hire somebody but they're not getting paid, is that okay?
I don't know.
They don't need a license?
Right. That's where it starts to get tricky.
Just Venmo me, bro. No one will see it if you Venmo me. We'll do it.
Write gift.
Yeah, write gift. Write gift. Just write gift. The IRS is like, hey, we saw you had $47,000 of gifts. Yeah, you can't tax that. The regulations became an issue during the pandemic when barbershops and hairstylists were forced to close to prevent the spread of coronavirus. Stupid. Leaving people with few options to get a haircut. The bill's primary sponsor, Republican Carol McGuire, said in a recent testimony on the bill that during the pandemic, when hairstylist shops were closed, the restrictions turned people trying to help family, friends, or neighbors into criminals just by cutting their hair or trimming their nails. McGuire and others, supporters of the changes, said the antiquated law was an affront to the Granite State's live free or die motto. The measure was opposed by cosmetology groups, of course, who argued that it would provide an opportunity for unlicensed barbershops and other illegal businesses to proliferate. Now, how?
They're not allowed to make money if they do the haircuts.
But the people aren't actually understanding, reading, or listening to anything. They're just saying, oh, you can do haircuts without a license. Great. How come I had to go to school? I want my money back.
Here's the thing. You're
not reading what the bill actually says, though.
And like, okay, so say my daughter wants to just start cutting hair. She's 6, by the way. She could cut your hair and then I could cut it. And let me tell you, your haircut's going to be fucking badass if I cut it. And it's going to be real shitty if she does. So you can pick your person. Like, you know, like you have to practice the skill. Yeah.
That's called
I love my kid, don't get me wrong.
It's called free market. Yeah, that's how it should be.
It would literally just draw, like it would make it so the more you work on your skill set, the better you get. That's where you're going to become more lucrative. Like it would really be amazing. The opportunities, again, I go back to the school.
Just because you have a license doesn't mean you're getting paid. I know people with licenses and they have zero retention because they're not that good.
Right, and they don't want
You're not giving a good
do
service.
Anything. They just want to sit around.
Right. So you get a license. It doesn't guarantee you pay.
Or that you're just going to be amazing at it.
So now you want to sit around and argue that everyone should have a license because you had to have one and you think somehow that's going to give you money. Right. Doesn't even make sense.
It goes back to just, you would work on your skill. You'd do whatever you have to do to get where you want to be. And you could be more specific to what those skill sets are.
This article closes out by saying but the effort to lift restrictions won support from many conservative groups, such as Americans for Prosperity New Hampshire, which called the changes a sensible step to eliminate the criminalization of cosmetology without pay. Yeah, it's sensible. Because I don't think that your mom shaving your hair before you go away swimming all weekend in the summer should get your mom sent to jail for a year. Now, I've never heard of that actually happening.
No,
but why would it be a law?
Yeah,
no, that's scary.
Yeah.
Don't have that sort of reach. It's really silly.
It's too much.
So I don't know what the exact solution is, and that's not what this podcast episode was about. It was just to get the conversation started.
Yeah.
I think inspiration. Yeah, I think we'll touch on this again soon because it's a good topic, I think. And
we'd love to know what you think.
Yeah, I guess let us know what you think. Because I've worked in other industries and like restaurants and the gym world, I've seen amazing things done by industry leaders who are not licensed by the government in any way, shape, or form. I've worked with amazing chefs that did not have a license because it's not required, but they also took the utmost care and respect with the food to protect the public. Therefore, the license isn't what protects the public.
Right.
It's the
There's the personal responsibility.
Yes. Now, if everyone went to the restaurant and got sick, the public would stop going to that restaurant. The restaurant would close.
Right.
So that's how the public would take care of itself. You have anything else to add to this? I know I sort of rant about this topic.
No, I think for me, I do know I've seen people that like get irritated and they see licensure and, that it could go away. But I would love for you to have an open mind as to what opportunities could come. Opportunity is a positive way to look at it, a different mindset. If there wasn't licensure, what would the opportunities be available? And I think,
ding, ding, ding.
I believe there's some pretty amazing opportunities that could be created. Obviously, it doesn't matter.
Well, we're working on some stuff, and we'll sidestep licensure. Yeah. We'll do what we have to do, and we'll make sure it's legal. But for every law you have, there's a way around the law. I mean, and I'm not talking about injuring anyone or whatever. Don't get crazy. It's just
no. We run our business to the highest standard.
Compliant. We're compliant. Trust me.
We are above and beyond. And I think especially with the apprenticeship that I've done many of times, I look at licensure very differently now just because of how it's held back certain people that could have moved faster and were ready to go. But
we'll also jump into, I think we'll do an episode in the future on schools and some thoughts, because I know we've talked about it off air, that we have some thoughts for schools or a school or
a school
whatever,
of the future,
and
that
a school of the
in my
future
mind.
that maybe you have or whatever.
Sorry.
So we can jump into that, but let us know in the comments. If you're listening, jump on, leave a review, follow us on Instagram. I will put the show notes, and I will put the articles that I used in the show notes too. We'll link that.
All comments welcome, whether you're for it or against it.
Yeah, hit us up.
It's a great conversation.
It is. So before we jump off, I actually had a conversation with a barber who is on their barbering cosmetology board out in Utah. And he reached out to me and he was like, hey, I saw you were against licensure. Can I just ask why? And I'm genuinely curious. And we had an amazing conversation. So I don't want to fight with anybody. I just want to get my thoughts out there on the subject, because I think it could take the industry to the next level. And that's what everyone is claiming they want.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Like I said, the opportunities would be amazing.
Let's get out of here.
Adios.
Thank you so much for listening. We will see you, talk to you, hear you, whatever, next time. Bye.